Hey folks, it's Tommy Z back with you again. Today I have a very special guest, which I'm delighted to have because her musical journey is just incredible. I'm sure she's going to be able to tell us a lot of stories and a lot of things that you can take out of these stories to implement in your own journey. We have with us today Genevieve Vincent. Is that how you say your last name? Or should I say it like French way?
No, that's perfect. I'm Canadian, and I'm not a French Canadian. It's a complete bait and switch, the French sounding name.
Okay.
So you nailed it.
Gotcha. So I'm on your site. I'm looking at your bio. You've got a full bio here. You're a true full-time musical craftsperson.
Yeah.
My question for you is, when did you first know that this was going to be your life?
I never wanted to do anything else ever. When I was little, I just loved music. I mean, I was one of those little kids that started like singing and making weird noises really young. So I just wanted to take music lessons when I was like 3, and my mom was like, forced me to take violin, and I didn't like it very much. But yeah, I remember asking her to take music lessons, before I was taking them. So I would have been like 2 or 3.
So your parents encouraged you?
Yeah, I was really lucky. My mom, it was sort of, as soon as she got the sense that I was into music, she was really excited. So she just pushed me in that direction. And I grew up with a single mom. And so we didn't have a lot of money or anything. And so she just kind of always made sure that she had enough money to put me into music lessons. And so, yeah, I was really lucky. She supported me a lot.
That's a life changer.
Yeah.
Right. It's actually quite amazing for me to hear that, because you would think that a single mom would be so worried about her daughter that she'd be like, be a dentist. Like we've had enough ups and downs. We've had enough uncertainty. Like just bet on the sure thing. But you didn't. And it seems like you went all in. And,
all in, baby.
And here you are. You don't have a job other than music, do you? You're not.
I do not.
A cashier or
no. Nope. Okay. Lucky me.
This is your full-time occupation. So you have a pretty rich resume as far as your education. And the first thing I want to ask, for the benefit of people listening, is should they get discouraged because some of us don't have? I, for example, don't have any musical education. Somehow I've been able to make my way in this world. But I want to hear it from you, what you think about that. And does a person who doesn't have any formal training like you do they even stand a chance of
no chance.
No chance.
Go home. Stop composing.
Stop.
Give me your job. No, I'm just kidding.
If you don't have
it, clearly it doesn't make a difference if you're motivated. And I think it's like, I think that we all have obstacles in our lives, and if we love something and we want it, we won't let anything get in our way. And that could be anything from having the opportunity to go to school or not being able to afford it, or getting that internship or not getting the internship, or, having that great mentor or not having it, or, growing up with money or without money, or, having 2 parents or having 1 parent. I think education, like anything, is kind of like, it's something that can make you feel like you are qualified. But I think it's really up to what you put into it. You you get what you give. So it's like, I know people that went to Berkeley and then after like have completely different jobs and not even in music. And it's like they kind of tried to do it afterwards and they just were like, oh, this is way different than I expected and I don't have the heart for this.
It's funny how some people think like if you take the formal path, like I go to school, I get a diploma, and then they expect that like something will happen just because you have a diploma.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, honestly, I used to always regret. So I never really had the opportunity to work for a composer as an intern, or not as an intern, like a composer assistant. And I always wanted that job. Like I was like, I just want to like meet a composer I can work for and learn from for like several years. And that will be like the perfect way to get into, for me, like mostly film scoring. And like I, I assisted a few people like a little bit, like on and off, but I never really found that person. And I always thought like, man, like this is going to be like a big obstacle. And I think, to your point with like going to school or not going to school, it's sort of like, you have to just find a way around it because there is really, there's no set path. And I also think too that sometimes when you don't do things like the right way, it forces you to exercise your ingenuity and critical thinking in a way that you would never have if you hadn't had those challenges. So I don't know. I'm just a big fan of like motivated, like go-getter type people. And I just like I love a like good underdog story. And so it's like, if you didn't go to school and you like just want it. And I mean, there's a bajillion artists who have gone that path and who are like insanely successful. So it's just individual, I guess.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not about education per se. It's probably helpful in some way, but you seem to be saying that ultimately the determining factor for your success as a potential full-time musician is really how badly you want it, like how hard you're willing to work at it, right?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, the thing is too, is I think that I've always had this sense of like, it's not in my bio. I took this out of my bio because I didn't really want to confuse people about my previous career as a music supervisor. Mm-hmm. But when I got out of school, of course, I wanted to compose, and I just ended up getting a production job. And I wanted to be good at it, and I just kind of kept, working really hard and trying to impress my boss and all that. And I ended up working at a few music houses and eventually at an ad agency in the music department, and then working my way up to running a music company. And
how old were you then?
26 when I became the EP of Walker Music.
An EP, for those of you who don't know, is executive producer. And this is why I wanted to talk to you, because you've had an incredible journey, which you can really see the evolution and the change happening. Like you finished Berkeley, you discovered the world of music and brands. You land a job as a producer in a music production company. You make your way up, music supervisor, then executive producer. And eventually you actually exit. I shouldn't say exit that world, but you evolve.
I mean, oh my God, I jumped off a cliff.
Yeah.
Jumped off a cliff. People were like, are you crazy?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that, but I want to stop at this bus stop for a little bit, because most people who are listening to this, they're trying to learn about the world of music and brands. And
of course,
I'm really convinced that for many musicians, it will be the future of how they derive their income. Like, you look at Spotify royalties, you look at selling singles for pennies. I mean, those days are gone. And unless you're like a massive artist, which gets millions of Spotify streams, you're going to have to figure out a bunch of different ways. And the fascinating thing about the world of brands is like we see how much content is being produced all around the world at this particular moment. Even I know it's slowed down a little bit, but people are still composing music, still content is being produced. So I want to talk about this experience that you had. You come out of Berkeley. Were you aware of the world of music and brands at all? Like, did you know that was a possibility as a career path?
I actually loved the work that Human was doing. They're a music house, and I mean, I know you know, but for everybody who doesn't know,
Sure, yeah.
They're a music house that's based out of New York, and then they have an LA office, and I think they're in Europe too. But they did some really beautiful work. That it was one of those things where I went to a seminar at Berkeley, and they were playing some of their work, and I saw this ad, and I remembered watching it when I was like, I don't know, 12. And I remember like being so moved by the music in this commercial. And I just like, said to myself, like, you're going to go work for them. Like that's going to happen. You have to go try to work for them. So I was like super emotionally moved by, the fact that I had seen one of their pieces of work at 12 or whatever, like a little kid age. Yeah. And then, I was like, oh my God, here they are right now. And, how can I find a way to work for them? And like, this is so cool.
So how did that go down? So pay attention, folks. It's amazing. Like you have this intention, the destination. I always talk about destination. Like if you don't have a specific destination, you're not really sure which direction to take. But when you have a specific destination, it's quite clear, like where you got to go and what you got to do. So I'm curious, how did you go about like your first job in the industry?
Sorry, excuse me.
No worries.
For everybody, it's super early in the morning, my time. By super early, I mean 10:30 in the morning.
The life of a composer in Los Angeles.
Okay, #freelancer. Okay, so the first job I got, so I did end up working for Human, but it was like the third job I got in New York. No, the first job I got kind of, it was a little bit of a creative way of getting it. So Berkeley offered, they can't get mad at me now, it's been too long. Berkeley offered an internship program, but it was basically like paying to work for someone, because in exchange, you would get credit for working. Uh-huh. And, being that I was already like in lots of student loan debt, I didn't really feel like getting into more debt just to work. And I thought, hey, like, I'm useful. If I'm going to work, like I should get paid, or at least, not pay for it working. So I wanted to find a way around that. And so I started to call numbers. So I used to have a job when I was at Berkeley at the Counseling and Advising Center. So I had access to everyone could get this, but like a directory that had all the important phone numbers. And I started calling some of the numbers it was like alumni affairs or whatever. And I kind of lied a little bit. So I called one number and I said, so-and-so, and I just used the name of the person previous in the directory. So it said I should phone you about an internship in New York. And they were like, oh, really? Oh, well, I'm not really the right person, but you know who is this person? And so I did that about 3 times with people in the alumni directory. And of course, at first it was like I just picked a random name to say was referring me, but then I actually got referred. And then I got to this person and they were like, I have this friend who runs a music company in, New York, and at the time it was called Fluid. And I think he might be looking for someone. And so I got connected by this person I didn't know to this person in New York called Ian Jeffries. And he's still the executive producer at formerly Fluid, now Butter Music. And I was in full-time school, but anyway, he emailed me and he said, yeah, I am looking for an intern. When can you come up for an interview? And I was like, well, anytime. I'm totally free. And so he was like, well, how about tomorrow? And I was like, great. And so I was like, oh, I don't have anywhere to stay. So anyway, I like booked a bus ticket like immediately and went up to New York and did the interview and got the job.
There's a lesson here, which is, because if you look at the pattern of how people get into the business, and I've been interviewing a lot of people and I know how I got in also.
Mm-hmm.
When you're reaching out to people, you eventually, if you do it right, you eventually get the call. And it's not like, it might not suit you. Like it might be like, oh, sure, yeah, we have this Nike commercial demo on that. It's due tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Right? Or with you, like, yeah, can you come for an interview? Yeah, absolutely. Knowing that it's a totally different city and you got to go there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there is no, well, you know what? Tomorrow doesn't suit me. Or, you know what, Ian, I don't actually have any accommodation. Like, those are the things you don't bring up. When somebody opens the door for you, you go through it and you figure it out later. If you have to sleep, I don't know, at a bus station in New York, that's what you do, right? I mean, but I just wanted to pick up on that. Okay, so you went in for the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Any tidbits there that people should learn about as far as what to do or not to do at an interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is to find out what that person needs and to focus on like the fact that you're there to help. And that sadly, they don't really care that they've already read your resume. So I would just sort of focus on like, so what do you guys need help with? Anything I can do to help? Like, just be like a pair of hands and like a brain that's like there to like do whatever, if that's, and people say like, be ready to take out the trash and stuff like that. But the thing is it's really, I think what, your boss wants to know is that like, you're a soldier, like they're going to say like, I mean, I've done some ridiculous things for bosses. Like I will say there was a burlesque party and these burlesque dancers, sorry, excuse me. I have allergies right now. It's like spring. There were these burlesque dancers and they, we're going to perform at this party, which, it is a little like Mad Men sometimes in New York in music houses and ad agencies. So anyway, the girls were coming down. They had to go down a fire escape to get into the room in which they were going to like perform their dance. And I realized, I was like, they're wearing like 6-inch heels. And like, no one's thought about the fact that like, they're going to walk down this fire escape. So I like ran out to the dollar store and got them all flip-flops. So for the time that they walked down the fire escape, put their shoes back on and went. I mean, this has nothing to do with music or anything, but the fact is it's like, what it does have to do with is that those women were so grateful for that small like courtesy that, you know what I mean? They were happily they were happily doing their job. So it's like, it's shit
about
like that.
Being resourceful.
Being resourceful. Another example is I remember I was working for a composer there who had taken this orchestration class, and I overheard the other composers talking about how they really wanted like the book that he had gotten from that class. And so I took the book and took it to the copier, and I just had several copies made and gave it to the other composers so they would have it. And like, I think it's the extra things. I'm not saying like, the fact is, it's like, there are no rules and nobody plays fair. So just like do everything you can. Like, there's no reason to like, I'm not saying like, don't break rules, like as in like, don't like do terrible things. But I mean, like, there's nothing stopping you from going the extra mile as far as like, like your job description. Like your job description's like assistant, so you're just going to take orders and do what people ask you. But like, it makes a huge difference if you're like, hey, I noticed that like this is tricky for you, and either you can like say that and then offer to fix it, but it's even better if you think of a way to fix it and offer the solution, just like by either doing it, if that's something you can do, or whatever. Because at the end of the day, it's like you're a part of a team, and you need to show that you're a team player, and that they need you there. So like, here's the thing is the first 3 months I worked there, it was before they like passed all those laws where you have to pay people. So I didn't get paid for 3 months in New York and got into even more debt, which was terrifying. But then after those 3 months, I got hired as the assistant to the music producer. And honestly, I sit like from that time until when I quit my executive producer job at 27, when I quit, or 27 and a half or whatever, I was never unemployed, ever. And of course, I know that everyone watching this is more of wants to go the composer route. And I totally get, and that's not something you can have guaranteed employment in. But for me, I didn't feel like I had the luxury to be that like inconsistent with my income, because I had so much debt. And so, yeah, having that kind of, just like having those regular jobs was like really great at the time.
And I think for those of you listening who are, let's say, in their 20s, even late 20s, maybe even early 30s. I mean, because I actually got into the world of music and brands when I was, I think, 30 or 31. So
yeah,
it was quite late for me. But for those of you who are listening, who are like earlier in their journey, these are applicable lessons, because one of your potential avenues might be to actually work at a music production company.
Mm-hmm.
And so this would apply. How do you get in? Well, you probably start at the bottom as an assistant. Like, look at your education. I mean, you graduated, you've done all this prestigious learning. And what do? You start at the bottom. Well, that's how it works, folks. I mean, like, don't expect anything more than well, now they don't have unpaid internships, but like, expect that people who are hiring you, number one, will watch you closely to see what kind of a human being are you, what kind of characteristics do you have, how do you approach problems, and two, if you're really helpful, you become indispensable. Like, it's really hard finding good people. Like, it's not easy, you know yourself, because you ended up in a management role. Like, most people are just not remarkable. Most people are just waiting to be told what to do. And it's like really, really lucky for somebody who's running a company to come across someone who goes, oh, I saw a problem and I fixed it, just to let you know. So,
yeah,
so that's
sure.
for you guys. So that's, if you're in that boat, then this is applicable to you. But now to the rest of you listening who may be skilled freelance composers who
we're like, yeah.
you just want to get projects. You just want to get jobs.
Yeah.
I want to now skip forward to the part where you become either the EP or the music supervisor. Basically, I want to get lessons from you on what you observed as far as the musicians, freelance musicians that you would commission for projects and who would become a part of a regular roster, and those who you might ignore when they send you an email, So lay it on us.
Well, okay. So when I started working as a music producer, not an assistant, I started working at Search Party Music. And I was the producer for New York. The EP at the time was in Portland. And the owner of the company is Randall Poster, who's a pretty well-known music supervisor. And he's best known for doing Martin Scorsese movies and Wes Anderson movies. And I mean, he does so many incredible movies, and he's a really brilliant guy. And, so it was a really small company, though. It was, at the time in the New York office, it was a 4-person operation when I started. And 2 of those people only worked on film. So my counterpart in Portland, she and I, were really tight with all the jobs that we did, but I really was thrown into the deep end. And how this relates to what you're talking about is I was really looking for, in composers, my previous experience had been working at music houses which had in-house composers. I had now gone to a company where there were no in-house composers. So my biggest asset was like a small group of freelancers who would always come through for me. And that's who I was looking to work with. So that was like 3 qualities, basically. One was like somebody who I could like get on the phone with and just get real with. As far as like, here's what they really want. This is the budget. I was probably more blunt than most music supervisors, producers are. Especially now, I think coming into it on the other side, I'm kind of like, oh, I guess that's not how everybody does it. But but what I thought was really like the people that I really enjoyed working with are the people I could just like pick up the phone and be like, get real with. And then so there was that. And then the second thing
was, get real with, you mean like
the client is insane.
Okay. Oh, I got you.
or the client said, like, this is the brief that we got. This is what I think they actually want. Like that type of thing. Not the clients. I mean, we all have had crazy clients, but I think
someone would understand you pretty quickly as far as the problem that you have at hand and all the things involved, like the client, and so you can
and I think
have direct communication and understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I tended to lean towards composers who had worked in-house before. It wasn't that was something I knew about them to begin with, but what I did notice is that the people that had previous experience, like working in-house in either like a dub room or as a creative director or, as producers, like they were much easier to talk to. So I think communication skills are really, really important. And I think it's because, I think it's important to ingratiate yourself a little bit with your clients. If you can, because I was rooting for people, I never pointed people towards music that wasn't like appropriate for the spot. I was always very mercenary about the music part of it. But certainly I would prioritize bringing in certain people in on jobs who were, really good, but also I knew would come through for me and not like abandon me in the middle of a job, which happens sometimes, so reliable, good communication. And then of course, like if I was hiring 5 people, I would always like to, this is just the way that I did it. Again, like, I don't really know, but this was sort of, I was sort of learning and teaching myself as I went in like terms of how to do it. I would always like to have 2 or 3 people who I knew would just give me solid work. It didn't have to be the most creative, exciting work, but it was like solid work. And at least one of those people would be one person who would give me multiple demos for one demo fee. So like maybe a demo and like 2 or 3 library tracks. So I always like to have sort of like the reliable folks, you know, who like maybe win like 30% of the time, or, you know, they're not like, but they're reliable in terms of like good quality, you know, good
You know what to
quality.
expect. You know what
Exactly. You know what to expect. And then like maybe like 2 people who I was like, who I would be excited about, like that I didn't know if they were going to like knock it out of the park or do something terrible. Because I just wanted to mix in something really creative. So it would be like, you know, maybe like an artist, maybe somebody who doesn't usually do ads, and like maybe like someone who does like film, or, you know, so I always tried to kind of have a couple of spots where people were like more wild card folks.
Yeah. And what would you say was effective as far as people contacting you that you didn't know, that made an impression on you, and you said, you know what, I'm going to use this person as a wild card, maybe just to try out on some future campaign? What was the thing that I'm just trying to get people to
Yeah.
understand how to communicate, what to present, how to
Yeah.
present their portfolio? Like, would you consider working with, and right now I'm speaking to you as a past music supervisor, producer.
Mhm.
We're going to get to you as a composer who's still
Oh,
getting commissioned to create ads. So you're
yeah.
actually doing this yourself. So I want to hear lessons from you, but I just
Yeah.
want you to put yourself back in the shoes of a music producer
Yeah.
and tell me, like, what should people do to really stand out, and what should they absolutely not do if they want to get a reply from people like us in the business?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that what I like in people is what everyone likes in people. So we have to caveat it with that.
And that's an
But
important caveat, because there is no standard, like, per se. There are some universal rules, I would say, like, don't send shitty emails, like, don't send like
yeah,
misspelled garbage
yeah,
emails that look like spam, or don't send 50 links. But I just want to pick up on what you said here, which is that our business is very much about personalities. And so, like, you have vastly different music producers. You have
you
somebody
do.
like me who's like really likes to be kindred spirits with their composers. You know,
I get you.
I'm very lenient. Like, I'm not very strict about certain things like some music production houses are.
Hmm.
For me, it's more about the chemistry and the chance of magic happening, and whatever needs to happen. Whether it's, sometimes I talk to composers for like 90 minutes about life. And then we talk about the brief in the last 5 minutes. You're laughing
Yeah,
because you know what I'm saying, right?
I do.
Okay, so I'm
Absolutely.
like that. But then there are like completely different music producers that you will be emailing. And what
Oh
works
yeah.
with me and the smiley faces and all of that, they don't smile. Like, these
No, they're
music
like,
producers
ew.
don't smile.
Yeah, they're like, ugh.
They
What
don't
are you
smile.
doing?
They're tight. They are serious. They're not into small talk. They're not into conversations. They just want the job done. So, very, very important that if you can, you research the people that you're emailing. See their
Yes.
LinkedIn profile, see their Facebook, see if they're holding a kid, if they're not holding a kid, what are they doing? Like, all those things give you clues about what kind of people they are to
Yeah.
approach them. But tell me what works for you specifically if you were a music producer today.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I mean, I think like the short, sort of, short, more familiar emails were nicer. So something like, hey, Genevieve, I mean, first of all, the best possible thing, and I will tell you, I have gone to some very creative lengths to get introductions to people. That is the absolute best possible way to not reach out cold. And if you get creative about who you know, first of all, it's important that I think if you're like a hardworking person of substance, you're going to like have other people like that in your life. Those people will be able to recommend you to other people. I think it's tough to trust people. I think when you're in a position like that, where essentially you have like a dollar sign floating above your head. So I think a lot of supervisors and music producers tend to really appreciate a recommendation. And so I know that can be tricky. And I don't mean over LinkedIn, because that's probably not going to work for you. But say, for example, like going back in time to like getting like my second job or my third job or whatever, because it was Butter Music to Mophonics to Human to Young and Rubicam to Search Party Music to Walker Music. So those are all the places I worked in-house. And those were all through word of mouth recommendations. And I think honestly, that applies to composers too, because having a recommend is like everything. So I think like,
what are some of those creative ways you talked about of you getting recommendations? And I love your story about like kind of going, doing the white lie thing, because I did the same thing when I was getting into business. And one of my mentors early on said, when somebody asks you when you're at a award show or when you're talking to ad agency people, what are you working on? Just say, because I wasn't working on anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
Just say, what am I not working on? I'm like, are you crazy? That's,
I mean, that's
I have a hard time. But
that's a little douchey.
It's a little douchey, but it worked,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
The thing is,
be confident.
You have to be able to make it work. If you're not able to make it work, if I say, what am I not working on? If I say it like that, like people are like, oh my God. I actually used to print out briefs from like the music production house where I worked. I used to print out briefs of all the pitches that they were on with the brand logos on top, like Nike, Adidas. I wasn't producing any of them, but I would print them out and I would carry them with me, and I'd sit at a bar like in the ad district in Toronto. And I would just have these briefs spread out while I was drinking. And people would come by and they're like, what are you working on? I'm like, oh man, what am I not working on?
Oh,
yeah. You see?
Buddy. So many things.
Those are the things that I tried. But the caveat here, or the small print here is, don't try it if you're not willing to catch up to your shit talking. Otherwise, you get found out immediately. Like, reality verifies whether you belong in this business or not. So
I mean, and I think back when I was in college, like floating, one name to the next, trying to get an internship. I mean, I didn't think too much about it. I think now I don't think I would ever mislead anyone now, just because I'm like, I know better. But like, I mean, I think that there are things that are acceptable, and like, you kind of just have to like make sure that you are, you're following your own moral compass. But what I would say, like, creatively, to get like those recommends, I mean, I guess it was more just like being creative about who to ask, because when I was working at Butter, at the time it was Fluid, and there were a lot of editors there as well. And when I was there interning, I would also say like, hey, do you guys need scratch VO? I mean, I would literally do whatever, it was like, so I used to do some scratch VO for those guys. And I ended up getting laid off at Butter after 3 months of employment, And I was super bummed out. And then I basically was like, on my I had like a week, notice. And I just started asking like editors and people, hey, do you know any music companies that might need an assistant or whatever? And I kind of like ingratiated myself with really good people who had like a lot of resources. And they recommended me, to other people, and I got another job straight away.
I had a killer
So
tip when I was getting into business, and I want to share it
yeah,
with people because it just came to mind.
yeah.
I forget about all these things, but somebody said to me, hire an entertainment lawyer who's well known in Toronto for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll open up his address book to you. And it was true.
Really?
Yeah, I went to this guy. I don't remember his name now, the lawyer, entertainment lawyer. And guess what? He didn't know, like, he had a address book full of various people in the music industry in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I really want to get into music and brands. So he's flipping through it. He goes, oh, I know this guy named Tom Emonson. He's a partner and owner of Pirates Radio and TV, which is or was one of the biggest music houses in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And there it was, like an inn. Like all I had to say is, look, this guy, his name was Chris something. He was a huge like entertainment lawyer. I paid $400 to see him for like half an hour.
Yeah.
But that was incredible because when I said Chris sent me to you, it puts you on a totally different pedestal because it's like, oh, is Chris representing this guy too? Like, what is this guy all about, right? And it
Yeah.
got at least a meeting with
Yeah.
this guy. So that's another.
I do want to say, I want to take a second to just say that if someone recommends you, whether in whatever capacity, like do them justice, make them proud. Because I'll tell you this, the people that I was first hired by at Butter as an assistant or an intern, I now still write demos for as a composer. I like the people that I met when I was 21, when I went to New York, and the people I work with now, like they're still in my circle. Everyone that I've ever met in New York in that time is basically still in my circle. In the circle of a periphery of connections of people that like I'll work with or I'll talk to sometimes. And I think the thing is especially for the younger people, and because the older people listening, I'm sure already know all this stuff. But I think for the younger people, it's like, you're the only one that has to live with your choices. And you're the only one that has to live with your behavior. And you're the only one that has to live with like the fallout of whatever. And I think if you conduct yourself in a way that's like hardworking and respectable and like driven, you will always come through. The cream does. I mean, I don't want to say it rises to the top because I'm not at the top, but I definitely think that like, you will always find friends, will help you out. People will look after you, in times of need. If you lose a job or something and someone, I mean, I think it's more than like about like getting hired on one job or another. It's also just like about like building a network of people who will support you throughout your career.
So let's now fast forward to the fact that you are a composer now. You're mostly focused on doing some great work in film, but you're still accepting commissions from the world of music and brands. So you're still getting called to compose demos for commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what you're talking about, is that like the investment that you made, even
Mm-hmm.
though you got laid off from a full-time position from Butter, which is one of the music
Mm-hmm.
production companies, they are
Mm-hmm.
still commissioning you to this day
Mm-hmm.
whenever the right project comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And so that investment is still paying dividends. like years later.
Yeah, so many years. Oh my God, many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I don't know. My attitude is like, I always have to prove myself at every possible turn. And I mean, when I quit my full-time job as EP for Walker, the first thing I did was I went and interned for this composer, and I was hoping, this film composer, and I was hoping like, oh, maybe I'll get to learn some stuff. Well, the task was he was moving, and the task was to outfit 5 studios with panels by myself. So what I did for like 2 months after being an EP, whoa, I'm a boss, not anymore. I literally ordered like tons of panels, and like I literally like just moved. I pulled cables out of his wall. He had like this really elaborate, like in his home studio, like cables set up behind the walls, ripped cables out of the walls, moved all of his shit from one place to the next. And then, like I'm not particularly handy, but now I am, because I was like, he's like, can you do this? And I was like, of course, please. So I went and got a drill, which I did not have. And I sound treated several of his rooms. I had never, I'm sure many people have used tools such as these, but I had not. But then it's like, how hard can it be? Whatever, I'll just do it. And then I used to like, after like a long day of, I would get there like, 9 a.m. I would like stop and like sit in the construction zone, eat my little sandwich, and then like get back to work and do that until like 6 p.m. And then I would like hurt every day. I mean, look, it was like a very light construction job, but the fact is it's like he didn't give a shit that I had been an EP. And honestly, it didn't benefit me to talk about it. I didn't talk to him about it. Like, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean?
Context. Like,
throwing context.
He doesn't want an EP, and you want to gain knowledge from a film composer because that's what you want to get into.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like check yourself, check your ego a little bit. It's like, and honestly, there was nothing, I probably like, I have to admit, I kind of enjoy toiling a little bit. Like, I think sometimes when things get too easy, I'm like, what the fuck is, what the hell is going on? And so, I think,
what would you say is like, because now you are sort of managing a bunch of things as far as a creative craftswoman. You have your films, you have your ads, you have your artistic project.
Yeah.
Is it? Because some people ask, sorry, what else?
Oh, I also do trailer remixes.
And you also do trailer. So the question I sometimes get is like, do you have to commit to the world of music and ads if you want to succeed? What's your take on that? Like, or can you do multiple things and find some kind of a synergy between all those different worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have not found, like I told you, particular success scoring ads. I'm actually much better at scoring films.
But you keep getting called by these prestigious music production companies.
I do. I get called a lot.
Asking you for demos.
Yes, I get called a fair bit.
Means,
I don't know.
Like, how often do you do demos every month?
Yeah, maybe like 3 times a month, something like that. Not a ton, definitely not enough to make a living. And I don't know. I mean, the feedback that I get when I don't win, which is most of the time, is like, it was like, it was really beautiful, but it was like too whimsical, or like too like
too real.
too sideways, or like too like this or too that. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm like, okay, like, you can just tell me. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it's,
well, why do you think they keep calling you?
I think I might be one of those wild card people. I think I might be someone they like to toss in the mix because I like fatten up the batch, and I'm like a little different. I do things maybe a little differently. I do a lot of live stuff. I use a lot of like live strings. I sample a lot of live audio. I've recorded a lot of live musicians over the last few years, and done like buyout agreements with them. Don't forget to do buyout agreements with your musicians, everybody, because it's good to cover your ass.
That's a good tip. So what you mean by that is that you've basically built up a library of musical moments that you can use in your future compositions.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say too that I have some ethics on that in myself. So I do get everyone to sign buyout agreements when I do non-union projects, which is often. What I do, if I'm going to be repurposing like some kind of recognizable musical thing that I've written for, like, say, a film into an ad, I'll go ahead and do it with the intention that if that goes final, I will pay that musician again. So I don't, because that's just my own personal ethics. I just don't think that it's fair to, like, I don't have any legal obligation to do so. But I just think that, if I'm making money, everyone should make money. It's about to me, it's all about a long-term set of relationships. And, in Los Angeles, I've been able to work with some really fantastic session players. And I think, when I have like when I have a demo, I'll have like some people who have played on like some of the biggest movies come into my little studio and like, do stuff at a real cut rate, just to help me get the gig. And, those people, again, it's the same thing. Like for when I got my first job, that I just operate with at least, some morality as far as like, if I'm making money, you're making money.
What would you say to people who are listening about how to best sort of sell themselves to the business? What if, for example, they don't have they might be skilled musicians, but they've never done a commercial before? Is it enough, you think, to, I actually teach people that it's enough if your music is really remarkable, one, and two, if it sort of resonates with what the market is doing. Like if you can research what the brands are doing, and the music is there, then you might get a shot, maybe as a wild card, even if you don't have a reel. But what comes to your mind if you were to advise people on, like, how do you present yourself to our industry from the brand perspective?
I think you really do need to demonstrate that you can handle scoring moments. And so I do think that it benefits you to grab a couple of spots off YouTube and score them and make a fake reel. I mean, I do think, I don't think you have to go too crazy with like wasting too much of your time doing that. But I do think that like, if you have like 3 or 4 options that you can just show someone alongside, like, this is my record, this is my band, whatever, like, then people will be like, okay, they can write a picture and they're also like really accomplished and talented. But then I think there's that. And then I think you have to ingratiate yourself. You need to find one person who will take a chance on you. And I think, whoever is nearest, my biggest advice is like, if there's like a tree with a branch coming down, don't try to get the fruit over here. Get the fruit that's the lowest hanging fruit, and that's maybe not what you had in mind. But like, if there's like a local music house, if there's, like if you're in Toronto, you're in Vancouver, you're in, wherever, Amsterdam, like don't try to go for the New York music company, like maybe as your very first thing, like go for wherever. I mean, don't not do anything, but maybe it would be easier for you to start out with a local music company and try to get them to give you a shot. And I think like trying to go in for a meeting, like I honestly think the best thing you can do is like go in for a meeting if you can and show them some of your work and then explain to them, be like, hey, I've had this career as a performing musician, and I would really love to score spots. Don't say, this is very important because I've heard this before and it comes across very condescending. This is also coming across condescending, which is funny. But no, okay. So
You're fine.
Don't say, I've had this great career as a performer and a recording artist, and I need something like reliable, like, because I'm moving into the next phase of my career that I can just do. Like, I need like an easy way to make money. Like, I've literally heard I've had musicians say this to me, and I'm like, that's like the worst thing you could say. Like, what? Always, meet someone with great enthusiasm, because that music producer, that music supervisor has that's their life. Ads are their life. That's what they are proud of. That is their career. And if you don't honor that, it won't come across very well.
Yeah, and it's the idea that you got to think about their needs and not your needs. Like, I'm amazed how many musicians email me and they're like, can I have some of your time? And it's like, I've learned this from somebody, never to say that to anybody who's like, who you want to work for, essentially, or who you want maybe to have opportunities from. Like, never say, can I have some of your time? Like, we're all busy people, and we've got priorities and deadlines and things like this. And saying something like this shows me that you might not have respect for your own time, because it's so easy for you to ask for somebody else's time that you don't even have this sort of cognizance that that person probably doesn't have any time. Like, it's, so never, try not to do that, because that really, I try to answer like a lot of emails, because people ask me questions, and when I have time, I want to help people out because people help me out. So, but when I get this like one line saying, please listen to my music, or please give me opportunities in the music business, I'm just like, sorry, I don't even know how to reply to that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think exactly, because like, knowing a little bit about your background, sorry, my logic just started running as I was talking to you. Amazing. Knowing a little bit about your background, it's like, you've worked really hard to get to where you are. And I think for anybody that's doing like something on the other side of it, where they're, receiving that email from you, like if they're not met with like a ton of enthusiasm and like seriousness, like, because you can have both. It's like, I would really love to work for you. I love what's on, like, I love what you guys do. I love your reel. Like, here are some of the things that I do. Keep it short and sweet and enthusiastic. I don't think you can go wrong if you kind of just do that.
I'm gonna leave it at that, because I know you have to go, and you've been gracious with your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. Thank you so much, Genevieve. And
it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All righty. And talk to you soon. Ciao.
Talk soon. Bye.
All right.